Hello, everybody. It's lovely to be here. I wanted to start with briefly just doing a preamble about what the decentralized data economy is. Everybody hates this term, but the reality is, as we all know, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. Data is a commodity. Data is a currency. Data is what drives the digital society. And that's the reason I think it's important for us just to recognize that. But what we are trying to do in the whole decentralization movement, when we think about decentralized identity, self-sovereign identity, verifiable credentials, what we're fundamentally trying to do is introduce data equity, empower individuals, empower organizations with their data, and give it greater utility within a digital society. So it's this concept of utility that I want to touch on as I look at what the future might look like as we move around this digital world. And as we're exchanging more and more data, as the physical and the digital world start to blend together. So just quickly, what is it that the decentralized model is going to do for us? Well, what we are hoping, so this is the hope, and this isn't going to happen by accident, it's only going to happen if we as an extended community work hard to make this happen. But what we're hoping this is going to do is, firstly, it's going to empower individuals by giving them greater agency over their own data as they move through their lives, whatever that might be. Whether in this example, I'm going to talk about a traveler. I'm going to share a narrative about what it might mean to be a traveler. But to empower individuals, to increase trust, because the very act of allowing individuals to have greater agency and control over their own data, greater visibility on what's happening to that data, who's asking them for data, what's happening with their data, we believe will increase the levels of trust. Reduce fraud, obviously, that's the big elephant in the room that everybody is concerned about. How do I know this is the person that claims that they are? We see deep fakes, increasingly coming up with these amazing new scenarios for how they can create fraudulent transactions. So I think fraud is a critical topic. Level the playing field. The other thing that I think is sometimes missed is when we think about a data economy, we think a lot about individuals. We're all individuals. We want our data protected. But what we also have to not forget is in a digital society, data is the fuel that drives it. And today, if we think about the world, the data resides predominantly with lots of large, big tech companies that can collect that data, that can scrape that data, can get that data, and then can ultimately do something with it. Which means that sometimes smaller companies don't have the same access to data, which means they're at a disadvantage. So also, the idea of allowing individuals to have agency over their own data allows them to choose what organizations they want to share data with. And we believe this ultimately will level the playing fields to allow all organizations, big or small, to participate in a data economy. Removing barriers and also fostering ethical AI. Now, this isn't going to happen easily, but obviously we all know there's this concern around AI, and anything that we can do to try and create transparency around the data that actually delivers, that makes AI work, is going to be fundamental. So if we, on the next slide, one other thing I wanted to throw out before I start on this story is just the other thing for us to think about is that what we ultimately want to get from a data economy is we want it to be trusted, but we want to realize value for all participants. So that means the individuals need to get value, whether they're, the data subject being an individual, but also the data subjects being the organization. The data providers need to get value to incentivize them to release data to individuals, because this isn't something that happens automatically. A lot of companies that have data don't necessarily want to release it because they feel they might be damaging their existing revenue stream. So we have to think about how do the folks that generate data for us also get incentivized to want to release that data to us. And then obviously data consumers. Data consumers are the organizations that benefit ultimately from the data. These might be organizations that have to manually verify data today when you want to open a bank account. What's the new value that they can realize by not having to do that manual verification? And then obviously the infrastructure tech companies. So this is just something that I always ask everybody to think about as we think about this new digital society and we think about how data flows through it. Now, with that said, let's start the story. So in this case, we're also looking at travel. I know that the speaker before spoke about travel. In this case, I want to speak about travel in a much broader context, not just about the borders, but the entire travel experience. if you think about, and actually let's go to the next slide, if we think about how all the touch points when we go through travel, so we touch borders, we touch governments, but we touch retailers, we touch airlines, we touch hotels, we touch car rental companies, we touch, it's other forms of transport, buses, trains. So there's many, many different entities that we touch as we go through our whole travel experience. And in the future, as everything becomes more and more digital, we're going to be exchanging data with those organizations. And this is kind of the conversation and the story that I wanted to share here for consideration. So we think about this as travel at the speed of thought. And the idea being is that at any point in time, I might be watching something on TV, I see a great documentary, and I think, oh my God, that's a place I'd love to go to. And how can we make that happen in a way that's really, really seamless? So in this scenario, we have a very specific story. We have Jane, who's been invited to present at a conference in San Francisco with her smart wallet and her travel assistant, Travel X. She has everything she needs right in her pocket. So the key thing here is that when we think about this future of AI, we're thinking about it on the edge of the device, where it can do some smart things on behalf of Jane without data ever having to leave her device. So that's a really fundamental shift in how we think about AI. So to some extent, when I think about a wallet and a smart wallet, you could argue it's an AI delivery device. It's how can I bring AI to the device instead of bringing the data to the AI? So that's just a consideration. I'm not saying this is the way it's going to happen, but this is something that I think is a really interesting way to explore how we deliver AI to individuals. So these are just some of the entities that Marie is or Jane, shall we say, is realistically going to interface with as she goes through her travel experience. So it starts with her employer. She has been invited to present at a conference. We all know what it's like having to get travel approval. She goes through the travel approval process within her organization, and she gets her travel approval, which could, for example, have an expense code. In the likes of in Accenture, anyway, we get expense codes for whenever we do travel. So now she gets a verifiable credential within her wallet that she can then subsequently use to expense any expenses that she has during her trip. The next thing that happens is Jane needs to actually go into the travel system to go book her travel. So what we're also imagining here is that these services that you need in order to actually execute a travel booking, for example, should ultimately and will ultimately be more integrated into the experience. So the booking experience will be more integrated. So as I go through the booking experience, the booking system will recognize in order for Jane to go to the US, she needs a visa. And she also needs a passport that has less than 6 months of expiration. So the application could simply ask her wallet to basically prove that she has a valid passport and it's not expired in 6 months and that she has a visa. If she doesn't have a visa, as an example, the application may then go and trigger the process by which she can get a visa. So the point here is that the process by which Jane shares verifiable, trusted information with the application is all by her wallet. So she's already got a wallet connection to the application, and she can share the information that she needs to share directly from her wallet. So she's not having to manually self-attest anything. So Jane now Jane is now going through the visa process. So for example, we have a client within Accenture that actually does all this visa processing work and is really interested in how can they start to automate, streamline this process by leveraging, for example, verifiable credentials. So now let's imagine a visa process that is actually relatively straightforward, that involves the exchanging of verified credentials directly from a wallet. So once her visa process has been completed, she's proven that she now has a valid visa, a valid passport, she can complete her booking, and she's now able to book the travel that she needs in order to start her journey. So she will now go to the booking system to book her hotel and to book her airline. And in both cases, she obviously needs to share information with the airline. They'll ask her for some pre-booking information, and the hotel will similarly ask her for some pre-booking information, all of which she can share directly from her wallet. So this also means that these airlines and the hotel can now start to automate and streamline some of this process because they're not having to manually verify a lot of data on the back end. So now similarly, when Jane is booking her car, what she's now able to do is she's then able to, you can imagine a world where the rental company can basically ask her to prove certain pieces of information before she can actually complete her car rental booking. So they do this today anyway, but you have to manually enter this information in. So what we're suggesting here is that now Jane will be able to prove her driving license. We have the MDL spec, which is maturing, and more countries around, or states, at least in the US, are starting to issue MDLs. So she'll be able to prove her driving license. And she'll also be able to improve her insurance. We're working indeed with insurance companies that are very interested in this idea of how could you credentialize insurance cover. And just imagine in this type of scenario where insurance companies can now offer insurance credentials that can be easily transferred to, for example, a rental car. So in this scenario, when she books her rental car, she's able to do this by verifying her license and her insurance with her existing insurance provider. So now, just imagine Jane wants to, and for anybody who's traveled to the US from Europe, so very often, it's maybe not so much the case now, but some years ago, you'd always get some really, really nice technology in the US that maybe hadn't yet been released in Europe. So in this scenario, Jane, she's seen the latest AR glasses, and she'd really like to buy them. So she goes to the retailer, she books them on a retailer's website, and she gets them delivered to her hotel room. Now, in order for her to deliver them to the hotel room, obviously the retailer is going to want confirmation that she is indeed who she is. She isn't going to be a guest in the hotel room. So they're going to want proof of her reservation within the hotel room. And it can maybe even be de-identified, but the point being is the retailer needs to be sure that she has indeed got a reservation in the hotel room before it ships a product to the hotel for her. So one of the key points here that I just wanted to highlight is sometimes when you tell these stories, some organizations will claim, oh, well, we can do a lot of this today. The challenge today is the way data flows, it doesn't flow through the individual. It doesn't flow through the person's wallet. The verification and exchanging of data isn't via the individual. It's via organizations. So what you have is you have one data provider sharing data directly with the data consumer. I may consent for company A to share data with company B, but it's really the data is going between two organizations. I'm really out of the mix. Now, that's okay when you have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, maybe 5 companies. But just imagine a world where there could be thousands of companies that people may be interacting with for different purposes. The spaghetti of consents and data exchange that would need to happen for that to work just doesn't scale. So mathematically, having a centralized way of dealing with data just doesn't scale in a world that's going to be massively decentralized, where everything we do in the world is going to involve exchanging data. From buying a drink in a bar and proving that I'm over 21 and that this is my credit card, to buying something in a shop, to walking through the airport through security. And all these different things that we take for granted today, they're all going to involve digital data being exchanged. And the only sensible way to do that is via the individual and via their wallet. So this is kind of just re-emphasizing again why the person is fundamentally at the center of this travel experience. So now, Jane starts her journey. So now Jane can auto check-in. Unlike, today where you have to manually share this pre-flight information and you're having to try and find your hotel details and find the address of the hotel and find the telephone number, and it's an absolute pain. You have your hotel reservation that you can use to directly prove this is the hotel that I'm going to be staying in and these are the dates I'm staying there. So now you have a much easier way to prove where you're staying, and the backside, the airlines have actually more accurate information. This is definitely where Jane is indeed going to be staying when she travels. And then now Jane can stroll through the airport with just her smartphone and biometrics. Now, this obviously presupposes that Jane's legal government ID is indeed something that she can have on her smartphone and is accepted. And this touches a little bit on the previous question from the earlier session about, what happens for non-EU citizens. What's fundamental here is that wallets need to be interoperable. There's a couple of things that are fundamental for this future to work. One is wallets need to be interoperable. And second is wallets need to be the choice of the individual. So what I mean by that is if I want to use a wallet from a specific wallet provider, assuming that wallet has been certified and is trusted by the EU, for example, I should be able to hold all my EU credentials in that wallet. And if that wallet provider is trusted when I go to the US, I should also be able to hold US credentials into that wallet. So for me, the critical thing here is wallet interoperability and what we call the global acceptance network, this concept of having acceptance and trust at a global level. It's not enough for credentials to be trusted within the UK, but not outside the UK, because UK citizens move out of the UK and EU citizens come into the UK, and similarly with the EU. So it's really going to be fundamental moving forward that we have this interoperability. Now, the good news is, from a technical specification standpoint, we actually have most of the building blocks we need to allow interoperability from a technical standpoint. The only thing really that's outstanding at this point in time is more the trust network, so the global acceptance network, and how can we link the various trust registries to provide global trust. So that is an absolute massive elephant in the room, but it's something that we absolutely need to come to grips, both the private sector and also the public sector. So now the other thing that's really important here, when we think about this new experience that wallets can realize, just imagine that because I'm sharing everything from my wallet, my bookings, everything is in my wallet. And this is the really exciting part. If we think about SSI or decentralized wallets, and we think about exchange protocols like DIDCOM as an example, what DIDCOM allows you to do is provide secure peer-to-peer exchange between your wallet and the organization that you're sharing data with. What that means is that your wallet is not just a storage of data, but it's actually a communication channel. It allows, for example, if my flight is delayed, it allows my airline to send a notification directly to my wallet. And for the wallet, or for me, the wallet to share then another follow-up notification back to the hotel and the car rental company to let them know that the airline the flight has been delayed. So my wallet becomes this way of a pub-sub model where I can then start to share data so that when a flight is delayed, all the downstream parties can be notified that there's a delay, and then they can handle that situation appropriately. So this is where this really becomes a smart wallet and not just a dumb storage of verifiable credentials. So in this case, so that as I indicated, in this case, TravelX, my wallet, can ping the car rental company. So, okay, so this is the next step. So now, for example, again, everything's on the edge of the device on my phone. My phone knows from GPS where I am. So my phone can ping the car rental company to let them know that I've just arrived, that I've landed and I'm heading towards the car rental company. So it's ready to roll as soon as I arrive there. It also now means that I could do things like auto check-in with my car rental, because again, I have in my wallet my driving license, my car rental, and everything that I need, my insurance to prove that I can get my car. Now, similarly with the hotel, my wallet can also notify the hotel I've landed and I'm on my way, and I can indeed be auto checked into the hotel as well. Where when I enter my room, I see so actually just one step back. So because the hotel has been notified that my flight was delayed, it could, for example, have some smart rules in the backside to say, oh, Maria's been delayed by 6 hours. She's going to be absolutely exhausted. She may have missed her dinner. Let's just leave a nice snack in her room to demonstrate that we know she was late and we want to treat her as a valued customer. A very small gesture, but it could be a really nice thing when Marie comes into the room, or Jane, after having been delayed by God knows how many hours. And when she also arrives in, she sees her AR glasses that she bought earlier on sitting in her room so that she can start to take a look at them. And that makes her delay not quite as painful. She arrives, so we fast forward to she's now arriving home. So for example, every time she had bought anything within the US, they could have issued her a VAT receipt directly to her wallet. So now when she goes home, she can automatically collect her VAT refund. She can automatically do her expense reporting, because remember, she has her expense code in her wallet. She has all the receipts for everything that she has spent in her wallet. And then she can ultimately easily expense directly from her wallet to whatever app she uses to do expense reporting. And also she could even, you can imagine, share her carbon credentials, because imagine that the airlines want to start issuing people carbon credentials. So her employer can start to track what the carbon footprint is for all of their employees that are traveling around the world. So this is just one example. It's very futuristic, but it's just something to think about as we explore what is the potential of verifiable credentials, smart wallets, AI, and the decentralized data economy. Thank you.